Hello, Ridgeway. It's Mrs. Brinlee, your principal, and it is that time again for me to share a few words about our APR and some updates about our building and action items we have going on this year. As you'll recall, I did the same thing last year, and my video ended up being like 20 minutes or something. So I'm really going to try to keep it shorter because that's a long time to listen to me talk. But the slides have lots of written information so that if you wanted to pause and take a closer look at anything, everything is there that you might want. Okay, here we go. Okay, so move myself here, maybe out of the way. This gives a little breakdown of our APR for this past year. So this reflects the 23-24 school year. We got 90.6% of our points on the APR. We got about 8 points more than the year before, the school year before that. So we're definitely making improvements. The performance bar indicates just that, student performance. Were they proficient? Were they basic? How much did they grow? Did they meet their growth goal? So it's not only was the student proficient or advanced, but it's also how much growth did they make in that year. So regardless of where a student starts, they all have a growth goal that they can achieve. And so it measures that as well. Continuous improvement is attendance and some more compliance type things. Our kindergarten team does a lot of different state mandated assessments. And so turning those in on time and having those different things completed, there's a few different things that fall into that category. And so, as you know, our attendance was great last year too. So we got more points for attendance. We were below 90% in the 22-23 school year. And last year we were 94.5. And so we gained points for that. Okay, so the bottom map part is, again, just that map proficiency levels for the last 3 school years. So you can see that language arts, ELA, has stayed fairly stagnant. These numbers are not alarming, but there's obviously also room for growth because we don't accept that 35% of our kids are not proficient readers. So we're going to keep working until that number is 100. The orange box in there indicates advanced. And so that number is part of the blue calculation for proficient. So 65% for last year, proficient and advanced overall. And then of that, 32 were advanced. Math has been gaining steadily over the last 3 years. We made some good improvements last year. And so we're going to continue that trend. We want to see that continue to move up and up. And we're doing a lot of staff development and things to help with that, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. One thing to mention about the APR. You may have noticed the district APR jumped by over 16 points or 16 percentage points this year, which is a very massive jump. Even the data department had said they recalculated it multiple times, thinking it had been a mistake because you just don't normally see a huge increase like that. However, after learning a little bit more about APR calculations, it makes more sense to me. The growth that I was talking about earlier, we get points for growth. And so that is comparative to all other districts in the state and students in the state of Missouri. So, for instance, if Columbia made some good growth and most of the rest of the state didn't, our growth points are going to be inflated. And so it may look like we've made more progress than maybe we have. I say all this not to be a downer, but to know that it could dip next year because those things don't stay the same. We don't know how the rest of the state is going to perform. We don't know how we will fall in comparison with them. And so there's not a really good way to predict what those points are going to look like. So just an FYI. Okay, so on the left here, attendance, you see 22-23, we were just below 90%. We got up to almost 95% at the end of last year, which is fantastic. Attendance is so vital, and that's just phenomenal. 95% attendance is almost unheard of. Our behavior incidents for last year, 29 behavior incidents. Now, obviously, that does not mean only 29 times students did not follow a rule or an expectation. These represent very more major and significant incidents. So major safety concerns, things like aggression and physical contact, profanity, things that rise to a really serious level because safety is at stake. And so while there's a lot of other behavior things that go on that we document in a different way as classroom issues, but these are really only those really big major events that we calculate as incidents. And incidents do follow a student from year to year and school to school. So that's why we're careful about what we record. We don't need to put a behavior incident in because a student didn't complete their assignment one day. That's not something their next school probably needs to know about. However, if there's massive safety concerns, then that is something that we need to keep track of. So we just try to keep that in mind, that these things follow a student for the rest of their career. And so we follow our district behavior matrix and guidelines as to how we consequence and also how we document and record these things so that we're equitable between our buildings and for all of our students. Every year, principals are tasked with creating a building school improvement plan. Our district has a school improvement plan as well for the district. And so our school goals mirror that of the district. So attendance is a goal every year. And so we don't have a lot of room to grow in that, because saying we're going to increase from 95% attendance is not realistic. It's going to be really hard for us to even hang on to 94.5. So certainly increasing is not realistic or something we should even be shooting for. Sicknesses happen, things like that. But currently we're only at 89%. So we are quite a bit lower than where we were last year. And we've had some things happen with some really significant like duration absences and different things. And those things happen, and it is what it is. Like, this is not something for anyone to feel guilty about or upset about. Simply that when your child is healthy, we want them to be at school. When emergencies come up and they're sick or things like that, we obviously understand kids cannot always be at school every day. Some of the things we're going to continue to do to work on attendance, and these are things that were in place last year, so we're really just continuing on because we had great success. Our office team works really closely together to monitor attendance, to make sure that we are working with families that have attendance concerns and struggles to help them overcome whatever the barrier is to getting students to school. We keep track of attendance patterns. We keep track of students below 90% to ensure that they are steadily increasing. We want to make sure that we have a very warm, inviting atmosphere in our classrooms, that we're providing engaging instruction. Those things make students want to come to school. Now, there are times that not everything can be exciting. There's going to be times that kids aren't super jazzed about what they're doing at school that day. But in general, to feel like the adults in our building care about them, want them to be there, and look forward to seeing them can be a really big increase in attendance. And then really putting a special focus on our students who fell below 90th percentile last year for attendance, and really just trying to keep an eye on them and also work closely with families to put some plans in place to help those students be at school a little bit more often. We every year have a keep them in class goal for the district, and that centers around out of school suspension. Obviously, if students are not at school, they cannot be learning, but there also are times that out of school suspension is what is needed. Currently this year, we don't have any instances of out of school suspension because we haven't had any situations that called for it. Again, the district has a behavior matrix that we follow very closely to ensure that we are being equitable among students and situations. And so we have had really great plans in place, and some of our students who struggled last year, we have things in place for them, and they have made huge improvements. So things are going really well in terms of behavior. Some of the things listed here are just things that we will continue doing. We work as a problem solving team for academic and behavior concerns to problem solve with necessary people to make sure kids are getting the support they need. We continue to team with families to get them the support they need. We've had several referrals to positive parenting program through Mizzou, which has been so beneficial to help kind of just create cohesiveness between school and home. And so all of these things really help us stay on top of behavior and ensure that we have as few disruptions to the learning environment as possible. And achievement is always a goal. So the district wants to see a 3% increase in proficiency in the ELA and math on MAP every year. And so we are going to try to increase our reading and math proficiency on MAP by 3% each year. And you can see those numbers represented at the top. We developed a vertical committee this year. And so there is a representative from every unit and the specials team and an interventionist and administration to really look at the building instruction from a global perspective as a building, try to work together to share expertise, to be on the same page, to do what's best for kids. We've been planning some instructional walks to get teachers into other teachers' classrooms. We have so much talent in our building, and we have some missed opportunities to learn from each other. So we're really trying to capitalize on that this year. We work in professional learning communities and data teams to analyze student data, do deep instructional planning, professional development, all of those things to monitor student growth, but also our own adult behavior and how we can better serve students. We have 3 instructional aides that are fantastic, that are specifically assigned to units to support instruction. They help with some supervision things throughout the day as well, but they get to work predominantly with one unit so that those relationships are there and they can really support those students and those teachers. And it has been fantastic. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is culture and climate. Oh, one thing I want to say about achievement. I don't have an update on the best indicator for MAP is iReady, and we have not taken our winter diagnostic yet. So I don't have really any current status to share in terms of this goal. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later too. Every year there's a climate survey that goes out to staff, parents, and students. Some questions gather information about CPS as a district and some as your specific school. And so these results are the questions that have to do with our specific school. Again, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I wanted it all here so that you could pause and look at these things. There has been all of these numbers are still favorable. Most all of our areas are above 80%. We have a few that aren't, but I have noticed that there are some dips from last year to this year. I'm not naive to know that in a leadership change, sometimes from year 1 to year 2, it's just different. So I will be gathering more information from staff, parents, students to try to gain a little more information about these results and get a little bit additional feedback, dig in a little bit more so that when our admin team is planning and our leadership team is planning, we can take that feedback and adjust accordingly. And so these are staff results. Again, many still favorable, but a few areas of concern that we definitely need to look at. This is the parent survey. So again, you can see fairly high levels in most areas and fairly consistent over a 3-year trend, but there are a few areas that dipped from last year to this year that, again, I would like to dig in and get some more feedback about. And then students took this. In years past, 5th graders took this survey. They changed it this year to 4th graders. But regardless, every year this is a different set of kids. But again, looking at trends over time should give us some really great information. We, again, are fairly steady in most areas, but again, had increased last year and took a little bit of a dip this year. And so we want to try to incorporate some more student voice to figure out what those things mean to students. And so what are the next steps with this? Culture and climate obviously has a huge impact on all things in our school. If for our staff to do their best work, they need to feel valued and appreciated. For students to do their best work, they need to feel valued and appreciated in an environment that's positive and structured and giving everyone what they need. So I take this very seriously, and I would love to gather more information and feedback about this. So some of the plans I have are developing a student advisory committee that have representatives from different classes and units so that we have a span of our whole building to increase that student voice, ask them questions, seek more feedback and understanding about how school is for them. Something I used to always tell my own personal students as a teacher is school's for you. And if something isn't working for you, I want you to tell me, because if it's within my control to change, I will. And so I feel that way as a building leader with staff, with parents, with students. If something's not working, I want to know more about that so that we can work together to find a better solution. I want to do a little bit of a revised version of parent advisory. I didn't feel like those meetings, I was super focused in those and needed to kind of rethink how that was going to look. But I will be sending out a date for the spring where all parents are invited to come and talk specifically around the topics in this culture and climate survey, because I would love to hear more from you. And then we have continuous conversations as a staff about all of these things. And so we will continue to do that work. Once we have gathered all of this additional feedback, we will absolutely utilize it to inform our planning and potential changes, both this year and when we're planning for future school years. These are some slides that just show you some of the language we use with students about iReady. We are going to start taking iReady testing this coming week. So some things to keep in mind are just to try, which are important every day. This is really no different than a normal day of school. It's always important to be getting enough sleep, to have some nutritious breakfast, to try to have a somewhat calm morning routine. I'm a parent. I obviously know that doesn't always happen, but giving our kids a calm start to the day can be getting off on the right foot. Please take some time to talk to your student this weekend about doing their best. All we want students to do is to give their best focus and effort. And if they've done that, they've done their job. iReady is just one piece. This is not a whole picture of a student. And so while this data is important because we do use it to inform instructional decisions, and especially as students move into middle school, there is not as many assessments. And so this is even used, it's even heavier whenever as the students start getting older. When in elementary, we have a lot of different assessments we give all the time. And those kind of taper off as students get older. So iReady is very important. We want to see what students can do. We want this information to be viable and accurate so that we can truly use it and teachers can truly use it to inform their instruction. And that's what this is all about. And several teachers within our building have started goal setting with students to try to increase the ownership that students have over their own learning and growth. I think something we've talked about as a staff is many of our students struggle with anxiety. And so we've had some conversations about is goal setting and talking about test scores with students the right thing to do? Will that increase their anxiety? And I think at the end of the day, how can something be more anxiety inducing than not knowing where you're at or where you need to go? As adults, there's no way we're going to meet our goals when we don't even know what the goal is or where we're starting. And so we need to give students that information. Students should know that it doesn't matter where you're starting. Like, it is what it is. We're not going to be out here trying to make students feel bad about where they are. Everyone is at a different place in their learning journey, but we all have a goal. It's going to look different for each person. And kids need to know that so they can be empowered to take charge of their own learning and education and really be bought in to trying to meet those goals alongside their teacher and classmates. And so we're excited to see how that goes. That's not building wide yet, but some teachers are dabbling with that so that we can see maybe the impact and how things go. And maybe something that we look to utilize building wide in the future. So iReady is next week. Some will finish next week. Some will go into the following week. If you have specific questions about your child's testing schedule or any of that, reach out to their teacher. If you have questions, reach out. Here's my contact information. I did want to put one little note in here. If your questions or concerns are directly related to your child's classroom, instruction, struggles they're having, friendship issues, anything like that, any questions or concerns, first step should always be going to your child's teacher because they are the expert of what goes on in their classroom. And so I want you to always start there. Now, if there are questions about this video, I'm the person to reach out to. If there are questions about building wide things, obviously you can always reach out to the office. But I wanted to just put this bug in your ear because I think that it's really important that we always start with the teacher. And if you have talked with your child's teacher and need more assistance, if we want to work as a team because this issue is big, then of course we can escalate it up to me. But our teachers are amazing. They're with our students all day, every day. They know the insides and outs of all the instruction and nuances that go on in their classroom. And so please start there if you ever have questions or concerns about things happening at school. Again, questions about any of this, please reach out. I don't have a timer going, so I don't know if I did better this year. It may be too long again. So thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoy your weekend and fingers crossed for a normal week of school next week. Bye.